Carlton exploded in rage, shouting curses at some men. "You insect, your mother's child." Immediately after, he prepared to attack some men using magic. "I'll kill you," Carlton threatened. Some men quickly noticed a circle forming around Carlton's heart as well. Thanks to his saintly eye, some men could see that Carlton was about to unleash energy from that circle. The saintly eye also provided some men with information about Carlton, his water attribute, and his impulsive nature. As Carlton began to use his attribute magic, small water rings appeared around him. With his delay spell, Carlton's movement slowed once again in front of some men. He would release the attribute power in front and near the chest. I anticipated his actions, and the next steps required finesse. As Carlton swung his fist towards some men moved like lightning, circling behind Carlton, leaving him momentarily bewildered. Some men struck forcefully at Carlton's right shoulder from behind, causing him to cry out in a hoarse voice. In the blink of an eye, some men circled to the front of Carlton and delivered a punch to his abdomen. Though some men tried to control his strength to avoid killing Carlton, he still inflicted serious injuries, causing him to cough up blood. Carlton slumped down, vomiting a large pool of blood on the floor, leaving some men bewildered. Some men blamed himself, cursing, "Damn it, I thought I had restrained my strength enough." Then he shouted for Hampton. "Quick, call the doctor." Some men pondered as he imagined the fight just now, realizing that perhaps his magic control was still not as precise as he desired. Hampton rushed in anxiously, asking what was wrong. Some men didn't explain but shouted, "I told you to call the doctor." Hampton, seeing Carlton kneeling before some men, became even more alarmed. Yes, I understand," he stammered. Some men sighed inwardly as he watched Carlton still coughing up blood. "Seems like I went a bit too far with punching that idiot brother of mine," he muttered. However, he silently smirked afterward, thinking he had found the most effective way to deal with sorcerers. "My first goal is to survive until I'm 17, some men thought, feeling a glimmer of hope. The next day, an argument erupted between Hampton and Hera. Hera exclaimed in shock, "Did that fool defeat the sixth young master?" Hera's reaction was sharp. "No way. How could that happen?" Hampton sighed. "Of course, it sounds absurd. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, you wouldn't believe it." After a moment of contemplation, Hampton hesitated and asked sincerely, "Could you speak honestly, sister?" Hera calmly replied, "What's up?" Hampton was astonished when Hera casually revealed, "Are you going to say that I'm just a shadow?" Hampton was speechless. Hera sat down nonchalantly, and everyone except that foolish young master knew she was his shadow. Hampton bluntly exposed Hera. "I don't think you're just an ordinary maid either. Your steps move so lightly and almost silently." Hera chuckled mischievously. "Oh, that's something everyone can see, except for that fool." Hampton adamantly continued, "I think you're onto something. I think it's because his 10th birthday is coming up. The last young master is finally beginning to change." While Hampton and Hera were engaged in heated debate, Some Min was alone, finding his way to the family library. It had a dignified ancient architecture, but unusually massive in size. After the duel with Carlton, some men thought it wise to learn strict mana control. Some men couldn't help but be overwhelmed by the grandeur of this structure. "This is where I will study to control mana," he thought, staring at the Starlight Library. He marveled at the library, resembling more of a shopping center than a typical library. It was no surprise that Larson had never been here before. Upon entering the library, Some Min was even more astonished. "This is insane. It's all books." Some Men wandered through the library feeling a bit perplexed. Every floor of the library seemed the same. He found himself asking aloud, not knowing how many books there were in total. Suddenly, a voice echoed back, "Around 200,000 books, young master." Startled, some men looked around the empty library, wondering where the voice came from. Then, out of nowhere, a beautiful girl with long, shiny black hair appeared, hovering mid-air. Some men furrowed his brow, asking who she was. With a sharp gaze, the girl replied coolly, "I am Nivian, the librarian of Starlight Library." Meanwhile, in the Maple Mansion's kitchen, a debate between two servants was still ongoing. Hera, filled with suspicion, questioned Hampton. "You say he's preparing for his 10th birthday already. I think he's also hiding his true self." Hampton staunchly defended his viewpoint, suggesting that if the young master had been acting this way for the past 10 years, there must be a reason. Hera scoffed, finding it hard to believe, but Hampton persisted, citing instances where the young master had accomplished feats. Hera was astonished to hear about the completion of the first volume. Hampton proposed that if the young master attracted too much attention too soon, it could jeopardize his succession. Hera reluctantly agreed, but still found the argument unsettling. Back in the library, Sung-min was still bewildered by Evian's presence. Apologizing for his forgetfulness, he asked again who she was. With the patience and composure befitting a librarian, Evian reiterated her identity. Sung-min, puzzled, couldn't recall her, resorting to using his divine eye to verify. The revelation of Evian's true name, Larvian, left Sung-min astonished. Despite his surprise, he acknowledged the honor of meeting her. However, Sung-min remained dumbfounded by her presence. In Sung-min's novel, Evian didn't engage directly with the main character, Kasen Sade, but was a formidable mage who participated in significant events. One notable event involved her single-handedly confronting an entire army of a nation. She froze them all with a wave of her hand, even freezing the fortress of Ravadan. According to the storyline, Evian would become known as a great mage in the upcoming North Sea War. However, as Sung-min recalled, she is now being hunted across the continent due to the events in Ravadan. He began to understand. Perhaps that's why she used a different name. Even though he didn't set it up, she managed to hide by becoming the librarian of the Maton family. The library of the renowned mage family Maton resembled a sanctum for mages because both the original and copied versions of the world's classic magic books were there. All the librarians managing this place were great mages and rarely appeared outside. Librarians had the authority to manage and read all the books in the library, which might be why Evian chose to hide here. While staring into Evian's cold eyes, Sung-min began to feel frightened. Anyone could be a librarian, but why did it have to be Larvian? Why would a legendary witch who froze an entire fortress in legend stand before him like this? Although Evian spoke calmly, Sung-min was still very cautious. Fine, he replied, and Evian disappeared immediately, leaving only her echoing voice. I'll go prepare it right away. Sung-min froze in place, his legs still trembling. The world was truly dangerous. He realized this was his first time visiting the library. Sung-min broke into a cold sweat, feeling a shiver down his spine. If that little devil were to come here, he couldn't imagine how it would behave, but he was sure it would end up dead afterward. After bringing tea to Sung-min, Evian continued to inquire. Sung-min explained he wanted a book related to mana cultivation. Evian asked at what level. Without hesitation, Sung-min replied, the most basic. Evian looked puzzled, wondering if the basic books would be useless for someone of Maton lineage like Sung-min. Sung-min chuckled, saying one had to learn the basics before advancing. Evian nodded and began searching with magic. Wait a moment, I'll find it for you, she said. Shortly after, a book meeting Sung-min's requirements flew out of the shelf automatically and landed in front of him. Sung-min looked surprised as the book moved on its own. Evian disappeared immediately after, leaving only her voice echoing, I hope you will gain something from it. Sung-min started reading the book attentively. Mana was a term encompassing all types of energy in nature. They had to store mana in their hearts and create a tome to become a mage. However, Sung-min could only understand the first few pages. Later, the 8th theorem of Largo and the 7th mathematical formula of Prato were mentioned, explaining why the answer to e to the power of 648 is what it is. Sung-min didn't take long to collapse with a sigh. How could this be a basic book? It's impossible for a modern person like me to self-study such peculiar knowledge. It's too difficult, it's all incomprehensible. While feeling desperate, a ray of light flashed in Sung-min's mind. Wait a minute, if I can't learn it, there's still the Holy Eye. After using the Holy Eye to analyze the book, Sung-min felt much more excited. Just trying to see if it works, but didn't expect it could analyze it. While I couldn't understand anything while reading, it looks like a computer screen. Really cool. Thanks to the Holy Eye, Sung-min could both read and understand the book and contemplate vaguely. This skill is really amazing. The problem here is that in this world, there is a monster that can use this skill even better than me. After half an hour, the system notified that it had analyzed 22% of the introductory magic book. The holy eye could not continue to be used because of a mana shortage. Some men then thought, what if it reaches 100%? Then I can understand all of this, right? I should prioritize solving the mana shortage issue. He joyfully closed the book immediately after that. Stopping here for today is enough. Until dusk, Sung Min returned to the Maple Mansion. Hampton ran out to greet him with a puzzled look. Oh, young master, Madame Soso has come to visit you. Sung Min was pondering, trying to remember Soso's face in Larson's memory. Then suddenly her appearance startled him. Soso was standing waiting for Sung Min in the hallway leading to the mansion. Her face youthful and gentle, seemingly not holding any grudges against Larson despite that brat's insolence towards her mother. As Sung Min looked closely at Larson's mother, he was stunned. Even from a distance, Sung Min could still recognize Soso's resemblance to his real mother. What's going on? Why is my mother appearing here? Sung Min always remembered his mother because he could never see her again. Sung Min's mother died of cancer when he was just a 9-year-old child, Larson's current age. After that tragedy, Sung Min's life became filled with sorrow. Since his mother's death, Sung Min has often been bullied, beaten, and mocked as an orphan. Sung Min had longed to meet his mother again many times, but he never imagined that Larson's mother would resemble his own mother so much. Sung Min couldn't help but stare at Soso in bewilderment. Why does she look like my mother? However, that wasn't the only shocking thing for Sung Min. He was even more astonished when he read Soso's information through the Holy Eye. According to what the Holy Eye read, Soso was in the early stages of lymphoma. Even her health condition was similar to Sung Min's mother's. After that, Sung Min didn't drive Soso away like Larson had done in previous encounters. He politely invited her to a separate room. Sitting across from Soso, whose face resembled his mother's so much, Sung Min couldn't even lift his head to look into her eyes. In Sung Min's heart, there was an overwhelming sense of guilt for what Larson had done in the past. He felt the pain of pain when he recalled Larson's criticisms of Soso. Why did Larson, speak to his mother like that? After a while of contemplation, Sung Min took a deep breath and looked into Soso's eyes, his mother's voice trembling from his mouth. Just one word, but it was enough to make Soso widen her eyes in tears. She was surprised by Sung Min's polite behavior in inviting her to the separate room, but couldn't imagine that one day she would hear such a loving call from her son's mouth. Sung Min awkwardly conversed with Soso. Son, I don't know where to start anymore, while Hera silently stood behind him, observing him with suspicion. Truly, the supposed useless young master isn't a wretched one, just pretending all this time, isn't he? Hera's gaze towards Sung Min was still incredibly sharp and icy. Is that part of the plan for the family inheritance battle? Anyway, I can't underestimate him anymore. At this moment, Sung Min gathered up the courage to speak to Soso, apologizing for his past actions. Soso remained silent, but her eyes widened slightly, unable to hide her surprise at her son's change. Sung Min chuckled awkwardly, telling Soso that he wasn't sure if she believed him, but now he understood a bit more. His demeanor had changed significantly, and Soso tried to maintain her composure, lifting the teacup. Mother understands, she said. Subsequently, Sung Min apologized several times for everything Larson had done to her, while Soso listened silently without any reaction. However, just hearing Soso's choked voice and a few brief words earlier made Sung Min understand why she wanted to remain silent. She was trying to suppress her emotions. When tears were about to burst, Soso immediately stood up to leave, saying she had something to attend to. Sung Min didn't stop her, knowing she was no longer a servant and had no obligation to stay. As Soso left, Sung Min pondered on her rare illness, leukemia. It was a rare disease marked by 3 green dots on the chest, with no known cure. If it reached the 3rd stage, treatment was impossible. Luckily, she only had 1 dot. Soso rushed out of her son's room and quickly closed the door, trying to hold back her tears. Finally, unable to contain her tears, Soso could only cover her mouth to muffle her sobs. On such a joyful day, why did she want to cry? The more she thought, the more emotional she became. Her only son had finally called her, for the first time in such a manner. Sung Min knew Soso was still outside and unexpectedly asked softly, "Mother, could you spare an hour for me every day?" Sung Min's earnest voice came from inside the room. "I will prepare Karon grape tea from the Shapelian mountain range. Shall we drink tea together at this hour every day, mother? So tried to stifle her sobs and replied to her son, Yes, we shall. Some men, the one who devised this illness, knew how to change So's fate. He felt a bit relieved, knowing that Karutan grape tea from the Shapelian mountain range, although rarely consumed, could cure leukodemia if taken regularly for a month. Afterward, some men silently watched So's figure leaving the mansion, regardless of what others said about her being a seducer of the family head and her son being foolish. She was still his mother. More importantly, no matter how Larson treated her, she never abandoned him. Some men silently felt grateful for once again seeing his mother, even if it was just a simulated image. Some men tried to suppress a sigh. Don't let the illness worsen, mother. That night, So returned to her small, isolated house far from the Maiden family estates. So still couldn't believe what had happened at Maple Mansion. She tossed and turned in bed, wondering if it was all a dream. She felt a mixture of happiness and worry. If it wasn't a dream, what was it? Larson had changed just before the boy's 10th birthday, as if he were a different person. Unable to contain her emotions, So spoke with a trembling voice. Did you hear me there? She spoke as if confiding in someone. Every day, I'll have tea with Larson. He's changed so much. Seeing him change so much, I'm amazed. But I'm also very happy. It's strange, isn't it, dear? So's voice choked with tears of happiness as they streamed down her cheeks. The candle in the completely sealed room suddenly flickered as if someone had just passed by, a subtle reaction, but enough for So to know that someone had heard her speak. The next day, some men specifically called Hara, causing her to feel a bit anxious. Yes, sir, Hara said seriously, wondering what was so important. In her mind, she briefly felt perplexed. Why did he want to see her? Had he discovered her identity already? Was he testing her loyalty? He wouldn't order her to assassinate anyone, would he? However, what some men said next caught Hara off guard. Verdant chocolate. Some men innocently requested, sounding like a child asking for a treat, but with a serious expression. I want the best quality as much as possible. Hera felt a twinge of disappointment. So, that was it, but before she could dwell on it, some men interrupted her thoughts. Oh, and one more thing, he added, catching her eagerly awaiting his command. Don't forget to get some candies from that bakery too. Hera felt a mix of emotions, from disappointment to anticipation, as some men's requests seemed trivial compared to what she had initially feared. After experiencing mood swings like riding a roller coaster, Hera finally completed the task in just 1 hour, leaving some men amazed, just as he had expected. The power of wealth and authority is truly staggering. A table full of chocolates was laid out in front of some men, a box worth 20,000 grain, roughly equivalent to nearly 5 million. There must have been at least about 100 chocolate bars. Some men chuckled with amusement. She had spent nearly 500 million on chocolate in just an hour, all because of a command from her master. It was unbelievable. One must truly indulge in this wealth and power to understand it. Some men immediately sat down and began replenishing mana. This is good. The most expensive type is about 30,000 grain each, and the cheapest is around 10,000 grain each. However, the difference lies in the amount of mana one will absorb. Some men pondered while greedily devouring each chocolate bar. While enjoying the chocolates, he suddenly realized that he could also charge mana with the candies from the bakery. That meant there was only one conclusion. The candies and chocolates shared a common ingredient, and some men felt enlightened. He immediately called Hampton and ordered him to bring the head chef of the bakery to them. 30 minutes later, the head chef of the bakery arrived to meet some men with an extremely bewildered expression, simply because Larson's reputation made everyone fearful. The head chef was filled with doubt and worry. Why was he summoned here? Was there something wrong with the candy? The head chef stared at some men with growing fear. He had heard that he was a terrifying person who even dared to challenge his own brother. He could easily kill someone like him if he discovered something wrong with the candy. At that moment, the image of Larson from the chef's perspective was that of a little demon. The head chef silently prayed, hoping that nothing would happen. Just then, some men's commanding voice startled him, causing him to tremble. Yes, I'm listening, young master, he stammered. Some men casually asked, what did you put in the candy? But the head chef panicked internally. Well, about that. Some men questioned him seriously, demanding to know all the ingredients without hiding anything. The head chef knelt on the ground in horror. I apologize. It's my fault. Some men's actions made him flustered, and he explained, "No, it's not what you think. I just want to know the recipe." The head chef nervously began listing. There's sugar from the Dorothy region, herbal powder from 1,000 years ago, 2 tablespoons of herbal powder, and corn syrup. Sun Min was surprised by the simplicity of the recipe, only that. The head chef hastily affirmed, "Yes, that's right, young master. I swear that's all there is." After that, Sun Min didn't bother to scold him but let the head chef leave. Although the brief encounter was enough to make him age 10 years, Sun Min was busy speculating. "I understand now. It's the ingredient inside the verdant chocolate, the 1,000-year-old herbal powder. Looks like it's essential." Sun Min laughed joyfully. "If I directly consume that herb, I can absorb even more mana." While Sun Min was happily enjoying himself at home, Noah was struggling with various troubles at the training center. Noah sighed heavily as he just bid farewell to a group of curious people from the main building. "Crazy, why did people keep coming here and asking about the missing heir? I only have 2 things to say, and they keep asking. The first is that he defeated the Red Witch with a single blow, and he recovered from the harmful effects of battle magic using the incantation of a healing mage. I don't know anything else to ask." Noah was pondering when he was startled by the shrill cry of the healing mage. "Manager, do you know the news?" The healing mage spoke with a panicked tone. "The missing heir has defeated the 6th heir. The fight was so fierce that the 6th heir couldn't even get up, which means he has made progress that no one thought of before." Noah grew more frightened as he heard more. This couldn't be true. Noah contemplated. First of all, battle mages aren't that quick, and to compensate for poor mobility, they usually use teleportation magic-like themes. But a 9-year-old battle mage can't use that. The healing mage continued with surprise. "I never knew the missing heir had such skills." Noah shook his head. "Even if he is powerful with that battle magic, it still has limitations." Noah seriously analyzed. The magic users in combat not only couldn't surpass the martial artists, but it would also become a hindrance to activating other elemental magics. It's the kind of foolish magic that everyone has turned their backs on. Then Noah sighed deeply and thoughtfully. He should have known about this. Why did he decide to go down that path? The healing mage nodded in agreement, suggesting that he might be too naive. Noah shrugged in response. "Maybe, but I still don't think that's the answer." The healing mage looked bored as Noah seemed too serious. "Come on, haven't you thought enough about this?" Noah pondered for a moment and then shrugged. "Well, I guess his 10th birthday will be a lot of fun." After finding the ingredients to make Sokolaverdin, some men immediately ate it instead of snacks. Seeing the system notification that he had absorbed a small amount of mana, some men felt elated. "This is it. I can absorb energy with hardly any calories." Some men continued eating while pinching his chubby belly. This cursed Sokolaverdin that he had been eating for nearly 10 years had accumulated in his excess fat, making it difficult to release the energy stored in his body. He began to think of a solution. If that mana accumulated in his heart, heat and energy would be generated, and he could also reduce his belly fat. The more some men thought about it, the more excited he became. With his mana increasing, his holy eyes could operate longer, and he could learn more magic in the library. With that plan, just 3 days later, some men had finished reading the basic book. The system displayed that information about the magic introduction had been analyzed, and the holy eyes had absorbed information about the magic introduction. When some men thought it was over, another notification appeared. It was about a book on easily cultivating energy by the great philosopher Alberto, revealing a hidden page. Suddenly, the book automatically flipped to find something. A line in the book lit up, giving some men instructions to find the simplicity of cultivating energy, the 77th book of the great philosopher Alberto. Some men frowned skeptically. Who is the great philosopher Alberto anyway? Suddenly, some men sighed heavily. More importantly, if he wanted to know what it was, he had to go to the Starlight Library again. Hera, at this moment, was monitoring his every move from above the ceiling. Hera's eyes were as cold as if a dagger wanted to take some men's life at any moment, but she was just observing some men more closely at the request of her true master. Some men entered the Starlight Library, again with hesitant steps, This library seemed colder, fitting for the Ice Witch, but where was Evian? Suddenly, Evian appeared behind Sung Min, whispering in a voice that made him jump. "You're done reading." Sung Min tried to calm himself and handed the book to Evian. "Here you go." Evian looked a bit surprised. "You read fast." Sung Min chuckled awkwardly. "Well, it's just the basics of using magic." Evian took the book back and threw it away, making Sung Min jump again. Watching the book disappear in an instant, Sung Min couldn't help but be astonished. How could she use magic without an incantation? Evian calmly asked Sung Min if he wanted to find another book. Sung Min nodded hesitantly. Yes, do you know about the 77th book of the great philosopher Alberto, The Simplicity of Energy Cultivation? Evian nodded. "Yes, it's here." Sung Min eagerly requested, "Then please give it to me." But Evian hesitated to explain that the book was classified as B because its content was quite difficult for beginners. Sung Min casually said, "That's okay, I'll just read it for fun." Unexpectedly, Evian closed her eyes and began to sniff. She leaned close to Sung Min and sniffed as if sensing something on him. Sung Min froze in place, feeling a strange sensation. He tried to suppress the scream rising in his throat. It felt like a predator was sniffing its prey. After sniffing for a while, Evian looked at Sung Min strangely. "Young master, you have a very pleasant scent on you." Sung Min suddenly remembered something and rummaged through his pocket. He took out a Verdant chocolate bar from his bag and handed it to Evian. "Do you like this smell?" Sung Min politely asked Evian if she wanted to try it. Evian hesitated for a moment before replying, "No, thank you." However, her hands instinctively reached out for the chocolate bar, as if afraid Sung Min might change his mind. Evian reluctantly accepted the chocolate, saying, "But if you insist on giving it to me, then I'll take it." Evian's reaction surprised Sung Min. Have I established this behavior?" He tilted his head, looking at Evian with a puzzled expression. "Something doesn't seem right here," he thought. Though feeling uneasy, Sung Min didn't want to cause trouble, so he quickly left, saying, "Well then, I'll be on my way." As Evian escorted him to the door, he politely invited her. "There's plenty of chocolate in the Maple Mansion, so feel free to drop by sometime. I'll ask Hera to arrange it for you." Evian's cold demeanor lit up once again with genuine interest. Her reaction made Sung Min feel like he had made another mistake. She probably doesn't mean it. It's just a polite invitation. She knows that, right? 3 days after bringing the book home, Sung Min had understood 42% of its content. However, his magic eye couldn't activate due to lack of energy. Sung Min stopped reading and pondered. The simplicity of energy cultivation magic is easy, as the great philosopher Alberto has not provided as much information as I expected. Sung Min felt puzzled by his statement. "I am a great magician. I could even use all kinds of magic. Isn't it great? But if you want to use types of magic like me, you have to learn the basics that I teach." Sung Min felt like he was wasting resources after reading nearly half of the book. Mana is limited, and time is not always available. So he decided to leave the Maple Mansion with Hampton and Hera to get some exercise. There was a small empty plot of land behind the Maple Mansion, and Sung Min started jogging there. Hampton was pleased to see Sung Min working hard. He seems busy all day, even going to the Starlight Library and the training grounds, in addition to exercising diligently. Hampton thought. Now, Hera had to admit Sung Min's efforts. "It's not just regular jogging," Hampton curiously asked. "Then what is it?" Suddenly, Evian appeared behind them and explained Hampton's curiosity. It was the process of dissipating condensed energy in his body by using muscle movement. Hera exclaimed in surprise. "Evian, in the heart of the assassin, there was a little horror. I didn't even feel her presence." Hampton politely greeted Evian immediately. "You came to visit the Maple Mansion, the steward, Evian." Evian replied coldly. "Yes, that's right." Hampton asked again, "Should I tell the young master about this?" But Evian seemed hesitant, so she shook her head and said it wasn't necessary. Hampton looked puzzled. Why did Evian come to the Maple Mansion? She's a steward, so she must be a high-level mage. The boy kept guessing as he looked at Evian. Did she come here to evaluate the young master's progress, or to support him in the upcoming battle? No, the steward is supposed to be neutral. Evian observed Sung Min for a while before nodding. He doesn't seem like the rumored 7th young master. Suddenly, Hira remembered Sungmin's instructions and took something out of her bag. Evian, the young master told me to give you this. Hira handed Evian a Verdun chocolate bar. Seeing Evian hesitate to accept it, Hira explained awkwardly, I never thought someone like you, a steward, would like chocolate, but the young master told me to do it. Hira began to feel worried as she looked at Evian's cold expression. When giving someone a gift, it's important to consider whether the gift is appropriate for their status. Hira felt anxious when she saw Evian's unmoved eyes. If chocolate were given to a distinguished steward like Evian, it could be seen as an insult. After some hesitation, Evian finally couldn't resist the allure of the chocolate bar. All right, I can't refuse the sincerity of the seventh young master, she said. Evian accepted the chocolate with an indifferent expression. Cold sweat ran down Hira's back as she glanced at Evian, observing Sungmin, her expression remaining impassive as if it were her trademark, neither good nor bad. Hira couldn't help but wonder, what was she thinking when she instructed me to give her that chocolate bar? What kind of relationship do they have? 3 days later, Sungmin finally completed reading the second book. The notification system, the simplicity of energy cultivation magic, had been completely analyzed. The holy insignia would engrave the easily understandable mana heart method into your mind. Sungmin chuckled with delight as the notification popped up, finally achieving mastery over the easy energy cultivation book. However, his joy quickly faded as the deep engraving process began unexpectedly. Sungmin collapsed to the ground in agony, a swirling sensation in his head. He felt suffocated. What was happening? His energy was spiraling out of control. If he couldn't rein it in, his heart would explode. The moment Sungmin's heart tightened, his mind went blank, struggling for breath, feeling as if he was about to die just from reading the book. Another surge of abundant energy coursing through Sungmin's body shocked him. If he couldn't analyze this flow correctly, his heart would explode. Damn it! Despite the pain, Sungmin remained alert. He needed to use his celestial eye to analyze it. What kind of demonic world was this, where failing to read a book could cost him his life? Immediately, Sungmin regulated his breathing deeply and evenly. His mana was still sufficient. He had to concentrate. After half a day, until the sun began to set, Sungmin was able to finish reading. Sungmin closed his eyes in a meditation position. The system informed him, you have engraved the easy energy cultivation method into your heart. Then, thanks to the effect of the easy energy cultivation method, previously invisible settings will be revealed. Sungmin continued to close his eyes and think about Edian. Until now, he still didn't know anything other than her real name. When the other world settings revealed themselves, Sungmin was able to understand why looking at Evian felt like the character was flawed. Information: Evian is 27 years old, ice attribute, cold personality, innocent, but a bit cruel. Especially the last line in the character setup shocked him. What the hell? Chocolate is the best number. What is that? Sungmin pondered for a long time, until he remembered there was only one reason to explain this setup error. It was so small that he completely forgot about it. It happened when he was helping a friend babysit his child. That kid scribbled on Sungmin's novel outline book that chocolate was the best number, but since it was just a sketchbook, he didn't pay too much attention. Sungmin nodded thoughtfully. That's why Evian was attracted to the smell of chocolate. I finally understood that strange action. I thought she saw me as prey. Suddenly, Sungmin's room changed color to bright red, and a sour, mocking voice rang out. Concentrating like that won't do you any good. Sungmin looked around in bewilderment at the room full of flying sparks and filled with a scary orange-red color. Fire, huh? What happened? A figure boldly walked through the flames and approached Sungmin, shocking him. The fire was not hot, and there was someone over there. Who's that? A girl appeared with skin as white as a peeled egg and flowing hair the color of lava, however. Her voice was sour. Hey, that pig. The girl sneered in a threatening manner. Why are you pretending to be so focused that you don't recognize me? Do you have anything to say? The holy eye immediately displays character information. Persia, 29 years old, attributes: fire, earth, water, brutal, cruel, aggressive personality. Sungmin recognized this character in fear. Did I create a crazy female magician like this, possessing 3 attributes? But why did she come here? Persia giggled and continued jokingly, I just interrupted you. I really can't help myself when I see you. Some men wondered what she was holding back, until he carefully read her personality, looking down on the weak and pitiful. Has a hobby of dissecting bodies. Some men gulped in horror. What kind of hobby was that disgusting? Seeing his younger brother sitting there blankly like an idiot, Persia immediately urged him to quickly answer. Why do I have to pretend I'm concentrating? Some men was startled and naturally reflexively blurted out, I'm so sorry. Halfway through his words, he stopped himself. Some men silently sighed in his heart, damn, I almost apologize. She hates people who are both weak and pitiful. If I apologize, she might cut off my arms and legs. Some men thought carefully, she definitely didn't come here to punish me for hitting that guy. Is this some kind of test for her? Some men ventured to reply in a tough voice, I don't pretend to be concentrating. Persia looked annoyed and asked, honey, what did you just say? Cold sweat ran down some men's spine. I know I had to say this, but it still feels terrible. Whatever, damn it. Just go after it. He mustered up the courage to say to Persia, I didn't expect your abilities to be so weak, sister. Persia then smirked disdainfully, barking at something else. Some men continued to speak in a calm voice. With your ability, you should have known that I was really concentrating. Persia replied indifferently. So what? Some men didn't flinch and looked straight into Persia's eyes. She only said that because she wanted to know if I would humbly apologize like before or not. Persia suddenly burst out laughing, making some men's heart almost jump out. Like this, was it a success? Persia said with interest. So you're like this, those rumors saying you changed are indeed true. In some men's heart, he was both relieved and confused. Even though he had passed through a door, there were no more rumors. However, he didn't have much time to think, so he could only calmly reply, I'm just trying to straighten myself out. Persia said sarcastically, don't you think it's a bit late to do that now? Some men calmly responded with the idiom, when she thought it was too late, it was actually the best time to start. Seeing that her younger brother dared to open his mouth to teach her with learned sentences, Persia immediately released a fiery snake and wheezed in some men's face as a warning. Persia giggled. When something is too late, it means it's really too late. Her snake wiggled in front of some men, showing its authority and reminding him not to try to fight for something that cannot belong to him. Even though some men's toes were shaking, he understood what Persia meant and continued to act calmly. I know very well that I cannot become a homeowner. I know my own weight. When the snake wrapped around his neck loosened a bit, some men continued to persuade Persia, but I can help the person who will become the homeowner. Persia's eyes lit up with a bit of interest. I heard that. Keep talking. Some men said in a sincere tone, I just want to say I can become a small variable, depending on how I use it. Persia still jiggled with a disdainful voice. Trash like you, but also useful. Some men seriously looked straight into Persia's eyes. It also depends on the ability of the person I support. Just like how a pencil can change the world. Persia started to loosen the snake on some men's neck a little more. So who do you want to change? Some men immediately speculated that she was testing who he would choose. Some men answered vaguely, to be honest, I don't know you very well. So I don't know who will become the next homeowner, nor have I determined who I will support. Some men lied without blinking an eye because in reality, he knew clearly that the person who would successfully step into the position of the next homeowner was Evelia, who he nicknamed the last great magician. Some men decided to bet again on his answer, even though he didn't know much, but I still know that the person she is most afraid of is her second sister. As expected, Persia's face changed in the blink of an eye. With the smile fading from her lips, the fiery snake immediately tightened and let out threatening hissing sounds. Some men began to have difficulty breathing, and his whole body burned when he felt the fire heating up quickly. If this keeps up, I'll become a roast pig. Persia's voice was sharp. She only listened to you because she thought you were cute, but now you're saying nonsense like this. Hearing that, some men had a hunch that she was in a good mood. Now was the decisive moment, so even though he was very miserable, he still said with a calm expression, I also know that you hate lies the most, and I despise flatterers more than those who know how to speak the truth even if it's hard to hear. I don't want to make her remember me as a weak, pitiful younger brother. Some men said in one go with an increasingly loud volume despite the fire growing stronger. Some men shouted the moment he felt the flames of hell engulfing him, I would rather die with honor than live with shame. I will not yield to force. Immediately the fire went out. Both the snake and the fiery orange-red color in the room also disappeared. Some men knelt down and coughed but still tried to say more. I believe she will forgive me because I only told the truth. Portia giggled at those words, foolishly. At the same time, something spherical was created in her hand. Portia threw it towards some men, and it hit his chest with a loud thud. Luckily, it wasn't a fireball. However, the force of the throw, like that of a baseball player, made some men cough and choke again in pain. He wheezed while silently complaining, feeling like he had just eaten an entire bowling ball. When he looked down at the ground, some men discovered that he had just been knocked down by an apple. The more surprising thing happened right after that when the system displayed Beginner Combat Magic Skill protected your heart from high-level ability. Beginner Combat Magic Skill, determined will, engraved into your magic circle. Some men couldn't help but be shocked. What kind of determination? He was engraved with a new magic move just because he was hit by an apple. While some men was still in a daze, Portia said, "Eat it." Some men bewilderedly asked again, "What?" But Portia had disappeared in a burst of fire, leaving only her voice echoing. "She told me to eat it. I found it on the way here." Some men wondered, did she want me to eat this apple? Some men picked up the apple with suspicious eyes. After a moment of contemplation, his eyes lit up. Wait, could this be magic items? The Holy Eye displays information that the apple is Karsha, a premium mana item, which is very expensive and rare. Some men opened his eyes wide in surprise, not expecting to receive something like Karsha so easily. Even though it was hard to believe, some men convinced himself it sounded absurd, but it was probably somewhat reasonable. Because I'm the youngest son of the Mayton family. He suddenly thought of the main character of the novel who owned the golden hand of the lucky village. Kassan Sade is favored by the god of luck, so Karsha probably has no chance of appearing in his bag. That's all. Without comparison, there is no pain. Meanwhile, Portia had returned to her room with a giggle that echoed throughout the mansion. "So that's the brat from the Maple Mansion," Portia said in a slightly amused voice. "It's interesting. That kid really created his first circle when he was only 9 years old, and it also learns by itself." Portia muttered to herself with suspicious eyes. If she had only pretended to be miserable all this time, then she really was a cunning snake. A sinister smile painted on Portia's lips. "I need someone as cunning as him in the fight against Big Sister. And he's not a coward. He even knows how to hide his true abilities." Portia's fingers tapped the table faster and harder until cracks began to appear. Importantly, it has no chance of becoming the next homeowner because of clear limitations. A bang rang out. The table was broken in half, but Portia didn't pay any attention. She stood up with a proud look. "He's a pretty smart kid, but he'll never have the chance to become a homeowner." Just then, Portia called out to her shadow, Sando, and a person dressed all in black suddenly appeared in the room. Portia ordered Sando to continue spreading rumors that Larson was in a hole, so that no one would pay attention to him. If possible, stop him from meeting other brothers and sisters. Portia carefully advised, "Remember not to attract attention. Right now I don't know if it will eat Karsha or not, but keep a close eye on it. Don't let it die of acute indigestion from eating Karsha." Sando curiously asked Portia, who seemed to like him quite a bit. Portia smiled cunningly. "Things will become very troublesome if someone says that I killed it, and things would be even more interesting if he didn't eat that." She suddenly summoned a fireball with a sinister look in her eyes, being offered to her throat, and not knowing how to enjoy it would be an idiot, right? Then we will have a reason to cut off its limbs. At this moment, some men was staring at the instructions for using the apple. Absorbing too much could be fatal. When absorbing, you need the help of a high-level mage. It would be great if the helper is a water, ice, or wind mage. Some men pondered. He didn't even know how much he could eat or how much strength he would gain after eating. But why did she give it to me? She wanted me to owe her. He carefully pondered for a long time because he was afraid of Portia's cunning personality. The more some men thought about it, the more confused she became. No, the third lady is not a normal person. I'm sure she did this because she felt curious or simply because she liked it. But if I completely absorb this and become stronger, she will definitely find a way to take advantage of me. Some men silently lamented, not knowing if she would throw him away or keep him after taking advantage of him. But if I don't eat this apple, she will have an excuse to cut off my arms and legs. So I will have to eat it. Some men felt creepy when thinking about Persia's strange hobbies, but thanks to that, he made a decision. Some men took a deep breath and continued to ponder. I need help. It would be great if the helper was a water elemental mage. Ice or wind star, ice mage. He immediately thought of Evian. I think this is a reasonable choice. Although Evian was suitable in theory, some men felt insecure. What if she wanted to kill him because she wanted this apple? She was also very good at defending herself. Some men worriedly imagined that she could say that it was because she absorbed too much that she died. Even though she tried her best, there was nothing else she could do. And in the end, she would get Karsha, which was the worst scenario. While some men was sweating out of fear, Evian suddenly appeared in front of his room. It's Evian. Can I come in? Some men softly held back his heavy sigh, while reminding me that crap is coming. Even if I hide, I can't hide. She has the ability to sense the mana emanating from Karsha. Some men silently calculated, I need to make a new plan. Then he unabashedly invited Evian in. Some men said frankly, Evian, I won't try to avoid it because I know you've already discovered it. He looked at the apple on the table with a serious look. As you see, this is Karsha. Evian just nodded slightly, Some men without hesitation suggested, I want to trade with you. Evian showed interest and asked, what do you want to trade? Some men explained, I can't absorb this on my own, so I hope you can help me. Evian didn't need to think twice and immediately replied stiffly, as a librarian, I must maintain a neutral position. I do not participate in any successor candidates battle in any form. Some men had predicted that Evian would not agree easily. He frowned slightly and added, I didn't ask you to help me participate in the war. Some men firmly stated, I only want to advance as a magician who aspires to enhance pure magical will. Some men's answer made Evian slightly surprised. What is this? Some men turned a steady gaze towards Evian while she was thinking. He mentioned magical will. That's something that standard magicians aim for. Evian's eyes suddenly wavered as her view of some men changed. So someone malicious has spread false rumors about the seventh young master. Seeing Evian still silent, some men continued, I have no intention of becoming the head of the family. Evian appeared skeptical. I heard that members of the Maiden family will fight with their lives to become the head of the family. Some men firmly affirmed that I have no interest in that. I simply want to enhance my attributes. Evian still coldly refused. Even so, as a librarian I still couldn't interfere. I hope you will ask for help from the central magicians. Some men dismissed that idea immediately. I don't trust the central magicians. I bet they were probably bribed by my siblings. Some men looked straight into Evian's eyes with staged sincere eyes. Please help me, I will tell you the truth. I want to protect my weak mother. As a writer and author of novels, some men wanted to use a love card to melt the ice in the heart of Ice Queen Evian. As expected, her eyes had a strong vibration. Evian suddenly remembered that when he was in Lebanon, the soldiers constantly harassed the people. Why do you dare not pay taxes? A soldier grabbed a woman's head and dragged her. Let me use you as an example for the others. That woman's son tried to struggle with him. Let my mother go, you evil person. The soldier immediately pulled out his sword with a ferocious look. You annoying pest. The woman saw her son in danger and without hesitation rushed out to protect the child. No. After a scream, the soldier's sword pierced the woman's stomach. The grouchy soldier coldly retracted his sword. Damn, that was really annoying. The woman fell down in a pool of blood and the child knelt beside her crying bitterly. Mother, no mother, open your eyes. In the child's agonizing cry, the surrounding civilians also felt indignant. What did they do to the point of death? That soldier deserves to die. Evian witnessed the whole scene and felt extremely sorry for the people here and became angry. After that, she went directly to the Emperor of Lebanon to reason with her, but in response she only received the overbearing and arrogant attitude of the king and his soldiers. Thinking that force would solve everything, King Lebanon immediately ordered his army to attack and destroy Evian. The end result, the whole castle, the king and his army were frozen in the blink of an eye. Evian remembered the past and began to feel sorry for some men, the 9-year-old little master who was being monitored for the rest of his life, and the concubine abandoned by the famous family. Evian looked into the steadfast and sincere eyes of some men, the youngest son of a famous magical family who humbled himself. He was truly sincere when he said he wanted to protect his mother. But this is impossible. The successor candidates are all very strong, far ahead of an idiot like him. Evian continued to sink into thoughts. With a lowly background and the lowest magical ability, he was dreaming of impossible things, but that impossible dream, its starting point is not wrong. Evian pondered thoughtfully. Dreams are not just things that are always possible. Evian's lips pursed slightly as she thought clearly. I think the process of pursuing something can also be considered a dream. Evian gently opened his mouth, still with a cold voice, letting me clarify this first. Right after that, her eyes shyly avoided Sung Min. I won't help you just because you gave me chocolate somewhere. Sung Min's face lit up instantly with a grin. After that, Evian began to cast her magic on the apple, and slowly explained to Sung Min in detail how the absorption process would take place. Sung Min is already lying on the bed ready for the absorption process, but Evian hasn't started yet. For now, I will freeze the mana release while absorbing Karsha, then slowly melt it so your heart can absorb it. Evian carefully reminded Sung Min that his body might freeze due to side effects. Sung Min's eyes widened in surprise. Could my body freeze? Evian continued to say calmly, if he was lucky, the ice would melt in a few months, but if he was unlucky, it would take nearly a few years. Well, if you are unlucky, you will die. Evian's indifference made Sung Min confused. Don't talk about it so calmly, Evian. Evian continued to say. Despite Sung Min's pale face, however, I am a quite talented ice magician. So I'll try my best to make sure the worst doesn't happen to you. Sung Min heard that and swallowed in worry. Should I postpone absorbing this? Sung Min stared at the apple floating in front of him. No, it was impossible to stop. The possibility of success in this situation was very high, because someone with Evian's personality is usually very careful about who she cooperates with. Sung Min reassured herself. She told me this was dangerous, but just think of this as drawing 50-50 its Gatko without any difference in rate. If you don't risk it, how can you eat a lot? Sung Min no longer hesitated, immediately shouted with enthusiasm, let's do it. However, Evian continued to say, there is one more thing. I am after all a high-level magician, because you are the one who asked me for help. So you have to pay me well. Sung Min was a bit worried that Evian would ask for something too much for him, so he cautiously asked again. Paid him back, right? Evian calmly nodded yes, not much. Evian coldly offered Sung Min a price, because to ensure he keeps this figure, I think 24 bars of chocolate are enough. Sung Min then had to suppress his smile because of Evian's adorable actions, and the two of them reached an agreement immediately. Not long after that, the news was reported to Persha, making her giggle, so the kid ate the Karsha, huh? Sando politely nodded, yes, he received help from librarian Evian. Persha was satisfying her animalistic hobby with an amused smile. Evian, that ice girl. Sando nodded once more. Yes, I believe he made her think of old stories to convince her. Persha asked curiously. How? Sando immediately bowed his head with a guilty look in his eyes. I'm sorry, but I don't know the details of everything, because if I get any closer, I will be detected by Evian's intuition.